Boom! Greetings from YouTubeville. Once again, it's the Draft Guru, Danny Savage. If you like, sub and subscribe. It don't cost a dime. Today's Tuesday. We're going to be talking about some early players that are rising in college football. And ironically, probably 80% of this list I've given out in May, June, and July. Today we're going to be talking about a few kids from Rutgers, ironically, such a small school, and Miami, the U, Penn State, Kansas, Minnesota, a few teams. All right. First kid is a kid. I gave you this kid back. Wait a second. And it's an off week. Wait a second. Still the best beard on YouTube on an off week. I gave you this kid in June. Rutgers left tackle Holland Pierce, 6'8". He ranges from like 350 to 360. The kid has not allowed a sack all year. And he was part of an offensive line last year that allowed the lowest sacks in the Big Ten. This kid is a former walk-on. He's always a nominee for the Brandon Burlsworth Trophy Award. Anybody that doesn't know who Brandon Burlsworth is, you really don't know anything about college football. This hat is killing me today I haven't worn it for a couple of days, and it's just killing me with getting it lined up. If you don't know who Brandon Burlsworth is, you really don't watch college football and you're not a scout, and you don't know the power of a walk-on. So like I said, I gave you this kid back in May, June. He has not allowed a sack. And I said back then on my video, some offensive line coach is going to see this kid and look at his tools, and he's going to fall in love with him. Some offensive line coach is going to say, give me 2 years to work with this kid, and I'm going to mold him into something, mold him into this big ball clay that he is. But he has all the measurables you want, and this kid's hungry, man. He's not one of these NIL kid deals driving around in a Lamborghini. You know, I said beginning of the year, and I got laughed at. I said, don't be shocked if Rutgers makes the NCAA playoffs this year. I said that. Don't be shocked. They will get tested this Friday night, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. They're playing Washington. So they will get tested this Friday. But they just coming off a victory over Virginia Tech, and he's a kid to watch out for. And I'd like to see anyone's preseason now rankings that had this kid in them. I'll be waiting. Next kid, Robert Longerbeam, cornerback, Rutgers, 5'10", 180. Has 10 tackles and an interception so far on the year. But this kid, for some reason, it's always like he's in a position to make plays. Granted, could he get a little bigger, 5'10", 180? In my opinion, he's going to have to play in the slot at the next level, but he's definitely someone to keep an eye out for. So those are my two Rutgers kids I've given you. Now, I could have given you Kyle Monangai, but I gave you Kyle Monangai back in my top 5 running back list back in May. And I've also spoke about Kyle Monangai already. I'd be shocked if he gets out of round 2. I truly would. And I think this year's running back class is probably the deepest running back class I've seen in probably a good 5 to 10 years. That's how deep. There's legit 15 monsters. 15 legit monsters in this year's running back class. So Robert Longerbeam, cornerback, Rutgers, he's a kid to be on the lookout for the rest of the season. Another kid came out of nowhere, Khalil Mullings, running back, Michigan, 6'2", 240. He has 440 yards and 4 touchdowns with an 8.1 average. Now, you guys can go back to my videos back in May, June, July, Everybody was pumping up. Yo, this hat is pissing me off big time. Everyone was pumping up Donovan Edwards, Donovan Edwards, Donovan Edwards. Not me. If you watch Donovan Edwards last year, he looked like he was running in sand. Legit. And I get it. Last year was the Blake Corum show. I get it. He looked horrendous. He looked like a straight up fullback. And then the college, I don't know if he was nicked up. I don't know if he was hurt. They keep that stuff quiet, especially in college football. And then all of a sudden, NCAA playoffs start, and this kid has a burst. I'm like, yo, where were you all year? But long story short, how's Donovan Edwards looking this year? He's not the back that everyone thought he is. Granted, Michigan has a brand new offensive line, a new quarterback, new wide receivers, new everything except the tight end, and he's injured Colston Loveland. But he will be a first-round pick. I just wasn't as high on Donovan Edwards as everyone else is. And he lost his job to this kid, Khalil Mullins. And this kid has better size, same size. I mean, this kid's a little bit bigger, but he has a much more burst. And he's been floating around on Michigan the last few years, and he pretty much took Donovan Edwards' job. All right. Next kid, Devin Neal, Kansas. I gave you this kid. I gave you him preseason. 440 yards, 4 touchdowns already this kid has. I'm telling you, he's part of this monster running back class. Granted, he has decent size, 5'11", 220. Granted, he does play in the Big 12, and listen, everyone has their things. I'm not a big fan of Big 12 skill positions. More so much wide receivers than running backs. Some people might knock me for this, but look at Bijan Robinson. Has he performed? Well, yes. Is it early? Way early. So we can't give him a final grade yet. But from what I saw at Texas, from what I see in the NFL, I don't consider Bijan Robinson a bell cow running back. I don't consider Bijan Robinson a north-south running back. I consider him more east-west. That's my 2 cents on Bijan Robinson. And where was Bijan Robinson taken? How high was he taken in the first round? So that's my 2 cents on Bijan. But this kid, Devin Neal, has good size. That was just my rant on Big 12 skill positions. Actually, I'm more down on Big 12 wide receivers than running backs because it's more of a passing league and no one plays defense. So, I mean, I think wide receivers' stats get padded in that league. Next kid, Damian Martinez. To you. He's been nicked up. He started off slow, and he only has 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, he transferred in from Oregon State, and like I said, he started off slow. Miami had some injuries early along the offensive line, especially at left tackle, right guard, but they're all coming together. And I think, who does Miami play this week? Miami plays Virginia Tech this week, and they're going to lay a beating on Virginia Tech. So Damian Martinez is another kid to watch out for. Another kid, I gave him to you guys earlier before the season started, Tyler Warren, tight end, Penn State, 6'6", 260. And like I've said, he is the best receiving threat on Penn State. Drew Allar's long ball is brutal to watch. And I said that before the season started, yet all these draft dudes are so much like, I don't know, they're in love with this guy, but I think they're more in love with his measurables, not his tape. Yo, when your best wide receiver leaves and transfers to another school because you have no deep ball, which Keandre Lambert-Smith did, yo, Houston, we got a problem. But everyone's in love with him. So that might also lead, like I'm a both sides of the coin type of guy. That might also lead to Tyler Warren's stats at the end of the year being a little bit higher than normal. But let's be honest, who does Penn State else have at wide receiver? Julian Fleming, the number 1 recruit in the United States, who went to Ohio State and sat there for like 5 years. The kid's a bust, man. Next kid, Austin Gentry, Boise State. I've been talking about this kid since same thing. I gave you this kid in May, gave you this kid in June. He's starting off slow. He only has 600 yards and 9 touchdowns already so far. Like I said earlier, this is going to be a crazy, crazy running back class. I said it earlier. This is going to be a crazy defensive tackle class. This is going to be a crazy edge class. This is going to be. Now, when I talk about that, I'm talking about like probably like the first, let's say, maybe like the first 90 picks, the first 3 rounds of the draft. I see much more running backs taken this year than last year, especially towards the end of the first round. I see at least 2 to 3 running backs being taken, where last year you didn't see a running back taken until the middle of the second round. But he's a name really to watch out for. Then there's a kid I have trouble pronouncing his name. Acantrius Asari, left tackle, Minnesota. I gave you him, man. I gave you him preseason. He's rising up people's boards. He has the size. He's 6'6", 330, left tackle. In my opinion, I think he's gonna. This is just my 2 cents, but it's way early. I think he's a left guard in the NFL, and there's nothing wrong with that, people, as long as you draft him accordingly and draft him at the right spot. If you draft him in the first round at left tackle, and then 3 years from now you got to throw him inside, it could be considered, you overdrafted him. But being a guard in the NFL is not the worst thing. So today I gave you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rises so far in college football. Tomorrow, today's Tuesday. Oh, tomorrow's Fantasy Wednesdays, right? Because a lot of people live in a fantasy world. So tomorrow is Fantasy Wednesdays. I'll throw out another college video tomorrow. And then also, like I said, it's too early still. I don't want to be like tagging people, like putting bad voodoo on them. You know what I'm trying to say? Saying they're having a bad year. Just because if you have 5 years good tape, 4 years good tape, and you have a down year, I gotta look deep. I gotta look deeper into it and be like, yo, what's going on? So like where other people are, armchair quarterbacks, people have 2 bad games and they'll just write them off, or they'll just talk shit about them, or they'll knock them down. And yet the only football they ever played was Tecmo Bowl or Madden. If you never played, especially if you never played, you never coached, you shouldn't be bad mouthing these young kids, especially if they have tape in prior years that they did good. You got to look a little bit deeper, people. But a lot of people don't do that. We all know when you're rocking with the GWO, it's for life. Over and out, everybody.